I'm going to preface this video by saying I've never really played war games. Although the more I look into OD&D and the more I'm starting to shape the kind of campaign I want to play in the spring, the more war games are becoming appealing to me. And looking at rule sets like Chainmail and how it works with OD&D, I'm starting to discover that it's something I want to bring into my future D&D campaigns. That being said, if I'm going to have a large-scale war or multiple wars going on in my game world, there's got to be some way to track that. And one of the ways that we can track that is by using a map of our world and using actual military symbology to track where units are and what conflicts or battles might be coming up or might need to be played out. So let's go over that and take a look at how we can sort of incorporate actual military symbology into tracking war in our campaign world. I'm Tristan, this is Heroes in Homebrew. It's pretty simple, really. There is NATO military symbology. All of NATO uses the same symbology to track where units and brigades and companies from all over NATO are in an area of operations. So we can take that and use those symbols to track our own conflicts in our campaign world. So if we look at the Wikipedia, it's simple. It's not nothing secret about this. First of all, we gotta decide, okay, we have friendly units, we have enemy units, we might have neutral units and units that are unknown. So our friendly units might be units of humans and elves and dwarves. Hostiles could be orcs, goblins, undead. Neutrals, maybe the halflings are neutral. Maybe they aren't involved at all. And the unknown could be anything. It could be a military force that the campaign world has yet to encounter. So blue square is friendly. A red diamond, enemy. A green square is neutral. And a yellow cloud shape is unknown. Now we're using that as the base. From then we're going to build onto those things and sort of dictate exactly what type of units these are that are traveling across the campaign world. So you can use the affiliation points, but you won't necessarily need that. So you have air and space, which is this weird oval, ground, sea, and subsurface. So air would be your flyers, whether you have units that are flying around on wyverns or dragons. Your ground is your infantry, your cavalry, things like that. Your sea surface, ships, and subsurface is submarines. Maybe you have submarines in your campaign world, maybe not. All depends. But you can use what is sort of, what works for your campaign world. Going even further than that, now you have the symbology inside of the hostile, the friendly, the unknown, and the neutrals. So you have airborne, so this little sort of looks like you would draw hills on a hex map. Those are your airborne, those are your flyers. Parachutes, maybe you don't necessarily need that. Fine, air mobile is your transport. Maybe you have airships that are transporting units. Amphibious, your ships that may be dropping guys off on land. Motorized, maybe you have motorized things, we don't know. Mountain operations, there's lots of mountains in campaign worlds. Cannons, it could be your artillery, what have you, and your wheeled little circles. And then you have your land unit icons, so air defense, ammunition, anti-tank, armor. So your armor is this oval, but then if it's wheeled, you put these three little circles under it. Artillery, your black circle. So that could be your catapults, your trebuchets, anything like that. Rotary wings would be helicopters. Or maybe you have ornithopters. Bridge, this could be a bridge that's held by a unit. Combat service and support. It depends how technical you want to get with what's going on with your campaign warfare. You might want to know, like, how are guys getting fed? How are they getting water? Combined maneuver arms, that's if you have your infantry guys that are going onto ships, or infantry guys going onto chariots and wagons or flyers, things like that. Engineers, might have engineers of some kind. There's, in my Rising Empires campaign notes, there's engineers that you can hire to build stuff, so why not have engineers that you hire in a military capacity? Electronic ranging, probably not applicable. Electronic warfare, again, probably not applicable. Explosive ordnance disposal, fuel, hospital, all these things. But really what we're going to focus on is things like your infantry, which is just an X inside the symbol. Your medical, that could be your clerics, could be the healers. And then you could have reconnaissance units, which is just a half X, just a line from corner to corner. Your signals, maybe you have magical ways of sending messages. You could have your special forces and your special operations forces that have specific tasks, and even those could even be the adventuring parties themselves that are involved in this conflict. Your supplies, your topographical, your map makers, transportation. And now you need to get down to how many of these guys are around. If you have infantry, great. It's nice to know that there's infantry moving around this map. But how are they moving? How many are there? Well, here you have your mechanized infantry. It's just the oval with the 3 circles and an X through it. You have your combat engineers, your armored engineers, armored artillery, and now the size indicators. So it goes all the way from combatant command region to front army group, Army Air Force, a corps, a division, a brigade. So if you're moving, depending on the size of these armies that are involved, you're probably not going to get larger than a brigade, which is 2,000 to 20,000 troops. Anything more than that, that's like empire sized, right? So you have a regiment, so the brigade is just an X over the square. The regiment is 3 lines. A battalion is 2 lines, which is 300 to 1,000 men. A company is 60 to 250. An echelon is 50 to 90. A platoon is 25 to 40. A section, 7 to 13 men. A squad is 5 to 10 men. And a fire team is 3 to 5. So you can just print these out or draw them on a piece of paper or index card or whatever, and you can post them all over your map with like pins on the wall or however you want to do it. And you can actually track this movement of troops throughout your campaign world. That'll give you an idea of how this war is going. And if you decide, we have 2 units that are going to come up against each other, then you can play it out using whatever mass combat system you're using. If you play war games, great. You can actually play out these battles with your miniatures and find out what happens in it. If not, you can just roll a simple dice roll and see, okay, well, who won, what are the percentage of losses, and go on from there. And it changes the scope, the idea of what's going on in your campaign world. The way it works is, say we have a section, right? We have a section of troops, and if we want them to be infantry, sort of like just your basic swordsman, you'd have an X in it. If they are an infantry that is currently on a ship, then you would have the little wavy line with the oval and the X. It's a very simple way of tracking these armies that are moving around. Otherwise, it just, to me anyway, if I'm setting a campaign with a backdrop of a war going on or what have you, not having information of whether or not there's enemy approaching or whatnot is, I'm just making it up as I go along. I would rather have some sort of concrete idea of how this war is going, because maybe the good guys or the supposed good guys in this war don't win. What happens if the enemy wins? What is that going to do to your campaign world? What is that going to do to adventuring parties in the campaign world? Are adventuring parties going to get involved in this conflict? Are they going to join a side? Knowing where these units are in the campaign world, even if you don't play out the battles, is going to lend some verisimilitude to the world itself. So here we have the reference sheet, which I actually have a copy of, but I'll put a link to this in the description of the video. So you can just use this reference sheet, cut out little symbols, and put them on your campaign map just to, sort of track what's going on in your world. So the reason I thought of this was because it's something I kind of want involved in my next campaign. I want these different nations to have their own militaries and possibly have these militaries either working together or in conflict with each other. But I wanted to say, okay, but I want to track it. I want to track all these things, and I want to know that if this nation has X number of troops, how is it split up? How are they broken down? Where are they in this world? Are they currently moving? Is the adventuring party going to encounter a platoon or a brigade of these troops? And how are the troops broken down? Are they all infantry? Is there cavalry? Do they have flyers? Is there a navy? And to me, I found it interesting. Once I started down that rabbit hole, I found it very interesting to be like, well, I can sort of track this, and it could be my own game in the background. Or even if, in the case of the Rising Empires campaign, if you have other referees who are controlling these nations, they can control where the troops are going, because we have rules for movement rates. So they can move X number of hexes in a day. And if they are pushing west to go meet an opposing force, then how long is it going to take them to get there? How big is this army compared to the army they're supposedly going to face up against? And then I went from there to, I should really start looking at war games rules and think about buying or getting my hands on some miniatures, which is a whole other thing. And once I get my miniatures, I ended up buying 2 small sets, skirmish sets of miniatures. I want to see what they're like. They're 6mm, so hopefully they're cool, and paint them up, and then I can use them. I got like a skirmish set of orcs and a skirmish set of like barbarian knights kind of thing. So I'm hoping to sort of round out this game, because I think we all know that OD&D was spawned from chainmail, but that whole sort of mass combat and war game aspect of it has been lost over the years, and I think it's something I kind of want to bring back in part into future campaigns, even if it's just myself playing out these conflicts outside of the weekly or bi-weekly game. It's something I want to try out and try and make a part of my game. So hopefully it gave you something to think about. Maybe something that you can use in your game, even if you put it on a map for the players to see and say, hey, there's an army over here. It could be something interesting. Or maybe it's just too much to deal with. Let me know in the comments. Is this something you would use? Do you have your own way of tracking large forces moving across the map? Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And until next time, save a seat for me at your table.